In this episode of CARPe Diem.
Internationally, there are 5 categories of elder maltreatment: physical, sexual, financial, and psychological abuse and neglect. Over 750,000 older Canadians have experienced abuse in some form.
CARPe Diem. Seizing the day for Canadians as we age.
In today's episode, we discuss elder abuse. But first, let's go with Leah Bolton and meet this week's Zippy Zoomer.
Sold. We're back with our Zippy Zoomer. He has been painting for 70 years. His name is Win. He's an artist and he's also a volunteer here at the art gallery.
Hey Leah, look at all this cool stuff. What we have here is all arts from the local high schools, and you can see there's quite a variety of talent throughout this whole building.
Because you retired, you wanted to come here and get some more work in.
And because I, as I said earlier, spent all my life in art.
So you work hard there at the art gallery. Now we're heading to the Yellow Door Studio.
The studio, exactly.
Oh,
yeah.
no.
I started when I was 8 years old.
Wow.
I lived in Toronto. My mother gave me an oil set. I've, basically self-taught. Even though I've gone to, 3 different art colleges, but I found I've learned very little in there. I've learned more from my peers in the painting world.
Tell me about a couple of your favorites here.
Okay, this is a painting of Hawaii. And the surf is coming in, and it's a style that I've been working on for some time. I have a series of paintings. We've got here one here of the waterfall over the volcanic rock. It's called AK Falls. We have another one over here that shows the sunset off the Kona Beach in the Big Island.
I like that one.
Kettle Valley Railway up in Peachland. This one is called Black Sand Beach. I call this somewhere in BC because I have no idea. It came out of my head one day. That's great, Lee. That's wonderful. What a great portrait.
Thanks, Win. Look at this masterpiece. If you guys have a Zoomer to nominate, don't forget to nominate them at zippyzoomer@carpe.ca. I need some more tips, don't I?
Yeah.
Don't we wish all our elders were so independent and happy? But unfortunately, an estimated 10% of Canadians experience elder abuse. Dr. Gunman, you can talk about that.
Well, the key definition is that it's a relationship where there is an expectation of trust. So that's what differentiates elder abuse from garden variety discrimination or other kinds of things that may be uncomfortable. But the abuse situation is unique in that sense, where there's an expectation. You don't expect your kids are going to rip you off.
Familiarity breeds contempt. This applies here. There is an expectation of trust, and it can happen with spiritual leaders, financial advisors, friends, family, etc.
One of my colleagues was teaching a course and asked people, how many people here have been the subject of elder abuse, and nobody put up their hand. Then she said, how many of you have ever been bullied? And many of the people in the room then put up their hands. So sometimes elders take the treatment they get as if it's something that they are due or that they should accept, rather than recognizing that it's not okay. Everyone should be treated with dignity and respect, no matter their age or their frailty.
When we come back, we'll talk about abuse by families. Sadly, it's more common than we want to believe.
Up next on CARPe Diem.
All right, you might as well just go to your room then, because we have nothing else to talk about until you sign.
CARPe Diem. Seizing the day for Canadians as we age.
We're talking elder abuse. And Dr. Gutman, can you explain a little bit more about the 5 maltreatment categories?
Well, there are 5 altogether, and the one that most people think about and that we heard the most about is physical abuse. And you know, when we first started recognizing this was an issue, we talked about granny bashing. But in actual fact, the 2 most common types are financial and psychological. And in the case of financial, it may well be a family member taking advantage of another family member and or a friend. It's rather somebody you do know and where you don't expect that they're going to take advantage of you.
And I think it is important to say that different classes of abuse normally go hand in hand. And sometimes, let's say, for taking better advantage of the finances of the elder adult, so what I do is put that person in a situation of isolation or diminish her or his self-confidence or
question their competency.
Thank you, yes.
Well, and that's what makes elder abuse so heinous, because we have people that are becoming frailer physically and are starting to get perhaps a little bit, perhaps lose a little bit of their cognitive capacity. So in a situation where they're most vulnerable, and instead of embracing them and giving them support, the people that they most look to, the caregivers, the family members, are instead taking advantage of them. And you know, I know one of the challenges is with powers of attorney, where individuals can sometimes take people's property.
Speaking of family abusing our elders, we asked you, how do you feel about that?
If you're living with your family and maybe they like to have all your money or take it from you.
I would never want to know anybody that would do that to their own family. People that raised you, you know, and that's just intolerable.
Why has CARPe taken up this banner of elder abuse?
We believe that at CARPe we speak for all older Canadians, not only for our members, but also for those who need a voice. And frankly, one instance of elder abuse is too many. When we think of older adults being frail and vulnerable, we need to speak out. There's a real problem in our society where people feel that it's their fault. You know, a mother perhaps who's abused by a son may think, well, I didn't do a good enough job raising him. And so that individual doesn't speak out and doesn't assert her rights.
And also there is a situation of shame, right? And so also because it is a family member or is a close friend or a person that is in a situation of trust. So the person that is being abused so decides to be quiet.
That you really have to think about that there's often more than one type of abuse involved. Because in order to rip somebody off financially, you really have to make them feel like they're not quite able and that you're doing them a favor, so you're taking over.
Abuse doesn't discriminate. Let's watch this clip on how some family members are abusing their elders.
Mom, we both know you'll feel better once you sign the house over to me. I just don't want you feeling overwhelmed with the burden of the house on your mind. All right. You might as well just go to your room then, because we have nothing else to talk about until you sign.
It must be terrible to be abused by your family. You're speechless.
Yes, and I have to tell you, that is not science fiction. That is real life. And in British Columbia, we have the Seniors Abuse Information Line. It's a confidential service where we listen and we give orientation to older adults. And situations like these are reported.
So often seniors are encouraged to sign over their property, and adult children can have a sense of entitlement. They think, you know, it's going to be my inheritance someday anyways. And even where there isn't friction in relationships, before that happens, sometimes bad things can happen. If the adult child is married or has a business that becomes unsuccessful, there's a problem, and it's worse if there's gambling issues or other addiction issues. We see rising homelessness where seniors are homeless for the first time, and so often that traces back to some kind of power of attorney or joint account and some type of elder abuse.
You really have to look at your own bank accounts and see, is the money there that you thought was there? And also to be really careful before you give anybody access to your financial, your assets.
We're taking a short break. When we come back, we'll talk solutions and resources.
Still ahead on CARPe Diem.
They can have guests as long as they're very careful about not revealing the location to the person who has perpetrated the abuse.
CARPe Diem. Seizing the day for Canadians as we age.
Welcome back. We've been discussing elder abuse, which has devastating effects on our society. We visit with Darren Maharaj in Toronto.
Darren, here we are. This is Pat's place, as humble as it is. As you can see, it's a very small single unit. When people come here, it's furnished with some essential furnishings.
It's estimated that 4 to 10% of the 65-plus population are victims of elder abuse. Here at Pat's Place, an undisclosed location in Toronto, it's hard to believe there is only one room dedicated to providing the necessary assistance to victims of elder abuse.
One unit, when so many thousands of elders are being abused, is not a lot. I personally think that the governments may be a little wary of putting too much money in it right now because it's so big and it would mean a lot of money.
You like it the other way?
Well, people do it all different ways. Yeah. I think I've seen this room every which way at this stage. 60 days, yeah, rent-free. They can have guests as long as they're very careful about not revealing the location to the person who has perpetrated the abuse. We've had people say to us, I stand and I twist the lock back and forth because I can lock this door and nobody can get in that I don't want in. And that's how profound this one small unit in Toronto is.
Berta, that's one unit.
Yes, and I'm speaking here for British Columbia because I am in Vancouver, British Columbia. We at Seniors First BC, we have the Seniors Abuse Information Line, and so that is a confidential line that is run 7 days a week from 8 to 8, and there is a service where we listen, we guide, and we give information. And there are options there. And we also can provide legal advice to seniors, low-income seniors. And so there is help there. You have to reach out, but that is your decision, people.
There's a strong movement across our country. The Canadian Network for Prevention of Elder Abuse is there to help.
There's 5 million people over the age of 65 in Canada right now. Recently, there's been an increase in elder abuse files related to power of attorney. With this recent trend, going into the hub and looking up information about what rights the senior has when situations like that arise has been helpful.
We have found that it was so beneficial to be able to talk to people from every province and territory in Canada and find out what they were doing and compare notes and work on projects together. It was just a really big help. Ultimately, the final goal of all this work around elder abuse is to prevent it, but in the process of trying to prevent it, if we can intervene earlier and earlier in the process by recognizing it, then it keeps people out of the legal system, the health system, the public safety system.
Wanda, I want to hear a little bit more about CARPe's initiative.
So at CARPe, we take the issue of elder abuse very seriously, and we are a voice for Canadians that are unable to speak for themselves. We have in our FACES platform and our seniors platform made some specific recommendations for how Canada can do a better job addressing elder abuse. One thing that's critical is establishing a national 1-800 number. Right now, when someone is either being abused or is aware of someone else being abused, it's so difficult to find out where to go. So we want that 1-800 number to direct people to resources and also to help us report and track elder abuse. I think the 10% number that's out there is actually an underestimate. Secondly, we're also calling for funding for organizations like the Canadian Network for Prevention of Elder Abuse. They operate on a shoestring. Their budget, I think, is $100,000 a year, and it's not fully funded and guaranteed. We have to do better. So we have created a page on our website, carpe.ca/resources, and there we have information for people about the various elder abuse resources in their communities.
Dr. Gutman, do you see hope? Do you see it getting better? Do you see it getting worse?
Well, I think that we've done quite a good job between the academic side and our federal government, who have had there was the ads in the paper, there were the television ads. We've done a good job in raising awareness. But what we haven't done still enough of is actually having the services in place and having trained professionals who recognize abuse when it's happening and know what to do about it. I remember when we first started to hear about elder abuse, and it was coming through on open line radio shows, and somebody asked me, they said, well, what should we do? And I said, well, go and contact the long-term care office in your local health unit. Next thing I know, I got a call from the long-term care office saying, please don't refer them to us because we don't have anybody here who really knows how to work with them or what to do with them. And you know, it's nice we've got websites, it's nice we've got print resources, but still, who's at the end of those? What happens when you click on there and it tells you go to such and such an office? Is there going to be somebody there who can really help? That's one of the things about First Seniors in BC, where they actually have lawyers there and some social workers, people who know what to do in the situation.
Yes, we also have an elder law clinic. We have a legal advocate assisting seniors to assert fundamental rights like a pension, taxes, and health issues. And we also have education and outreach. We are a province-wide organization, and our goal is to reach every corner of British Columbia.
But within Canada also, there are a number of examples where the practitioners have come together with the police, because some of these issues are in fact ones that the police need to be involved in. And so we need training and a close working relationship, so that in those situations, if somebody is doing something illegal, the prosecution will go forward.
It's so important to have a place to go when you suspect someone is in trouble or you yourself are in trouble. And the question is, what would you do? We went and asked you.
Maybe they should go into the families, you know, visit the homes every so often and talk to the elderly, not to the people that are looking after them. See if they have something to say.
I would turn to the RCMP. I would turn to the local authorities. I would turn to the local authorities. I would call somebody. I would get some help some way, somehow, down to my last dying bone if I was being abused.
CARPe Diem. Seizing the day for Canadians as we age.
It's now time to go around the table for our panel's final thoughts on elder abuse. Berta, would I go first?
It is your life. It is your money. You have rights. You have a self-determination right. Those rights don't have a best before date. There are resources out there. You are not alone. Reach out if you wish to reach out. And I want to emphasize, you are not alone.
Originally, when we started talking about elder abuse, it was described as a social problem. Then it was described as a medical problem. And now very much the emphasis is on human rights. People do have to think about, how do I get myself out of this situation? And that not to have to be bullied into enduring.
Really agree with my colleagues. Elder abuse is fundamentally about isolation. That's why it's so critical that if you see something, you say something. But even more than that, what we recognize is that underlying elder abuse is ageism. It is no longer okay to denigrate women, to be a racist, yet somehow ageism is rampant in our society. We need to counter that. We need to embrace our older Canadians for the vital, vibrant citizens that they are. And once we do that, we will be well on our way to conquering elder abuse and making Canada a great place to age.
Thank you so much, Berta, for being with us, and Dr. Gutman and Wanda, always a pleasure to have you with us on the show. And that's the show. Remember, as our CARPe president, Moses Neimer, always says, the best way to keep going is to keep going. So stay zippy and CARPe Diem. Seize your day.